Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 490 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our fifth book just came out. It's called Perseverance and How to Be a Great Fraternity or Sorority Alumnus. So go and pick up that book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, I love talking about branding because I think there are some organizations that do an absolutely wonderful job with it within fraternity and sorority life, and others that are not so good. And we see chapters using various different logos and various different taglines, despite best efforts from the headquarters to get that consistent messaging. So let's talk to a branding expert today to learn more. Lauren Bayne is a passionate person about helping individuals define or refine their brand messaging, unleash their creativity, and craft compelling narratives that resonate with their target audiences. By ensuring all elements of your personal brand work together seamlessly, from visual identity to video content, she creates a powerful professional presence that sets you apart from the field. Understanding the importance of authentic brand expression, Lauren works closely with clients to create captivating brand identities that move hearts and minds. Her journey has involved collaborating with renowned names like Southwest Airlines, Pennzoil, AT&T, and United Health. So whether you're an entrepreneur looking to stand out in a crowded market or a thought leader aiming to amplify your message, Lauren can help you develop a cohesive personal brand system that's as unique and inspiring as you are. Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, listen, I am so excited. Anytime you want to talk about marketing and branding, I am all ears because I'm just fascinated with the entire world of it. And you are a pro. So I'm excited about today's conversation. I
Awesome.
like to start with college campuses because I think that's a very formative time in our careers. You decided on UT Austin for your undergraduate experience. Tell our audience, why did you choose UT Austin?
Oh, well, I was living in Houston at the time and I wanted to get outside of the city, but not too far outside. So Austin was a good 150 miles away from Houston. And it also was really well known for their communications school. Having like Austin City Limits being filmed within the communications school, it was just like the right place where I wanted to go. I also first started out wanting to be in broadcast journalism. And so it's very interesting because I didn't really know what advertising was. And so being in the communications college, they make you take a course outside of your major. That's part of your requisites. And I was like, okay, intro to advertising. This looks good. I'd never heard of it. And at the time I was also studying journalism. And so I was doing this parallel path of comparison in both of the majors. And when I got into advertising and it just clicked so easily, it was like, I didn't know where my creativity could go live. And so, which is a great reason why we go to college, to kind of discover our unique gifts and figure out where they fit into the job market. And so I quickly changed my major that next year to advertising and just set forth on this creative endeavor that's been amazing. And it's just been so fun to work within the advertising space in so many different ways over the last 25 years.
That's awesome. Austin is a fantastic city. I love speaking at UT Austin. Reminds me a lot of the city that I'm in now, Nashville, Tennessee. A lot of
Oh,
similarities there, which is
yep.
wonderful. And Houston is a great city too. I mean, I just dropped off my daughter over at Rice, and she absolutely loves that city. So there are some wonderful places there in Texas that I'm a huge fan of, and I'm happy it all worked out. Clearly, that creative side of you really just flourished and has done great things. So it all worked out in the end.
Well, and congrats, Dad. That's a great school to be dropping your daughter off at.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's a wonderful school. She's extremely bright and she's loving Houston. So it's all working out so far. So far so good. Now, your journey in brand development, I mean, you are collaborating with some really big names. So what do all of these companies that you've worked with, the Southwest Airlines, the Pennzoil, the AT&T, what do they do well in terms of their brand development?
You touched on it a little bit at the beginning about consistency. And I
Mm,
think that's something people forget to forget about with the fun and the branding and the marketing is the consistency matters because you're saturating your message in so many different ways across so many different media outlets. So making sure that they're always consistent is something people have to think about. So with the big brands that I worked with when I started off my career, those were solidified. They've been around forever. And so when I moved over to smaller businesses and smaller brands, that's a message that you have to really make sure that they can tether throughout every single thing they do because they don't have these enormous marketing capacities and these big CMOs running it all to keep everything checks and balances. So consistency, having a consistent brand voice and visual identity across all the touch points. Also very purpose driven. I got my career started at GSD&M in Austin, Texas, and Roy Spence was one of my mentors, still is today, and he was one of the pioneers of purpose driven branding. And so I think that they all communicate a clear purpose beyond profit. And he wrote a book, It's Not What You Sell, It's What You Stand For. And that just resonated with me so much as far as the craft of what we do and it being something bigger than just the bottom line. So that is also something that those brands would do. They're also really adaptable and have an emotional connections. A lot of these brands really tie into the emotion of how their product or service works in a person's life. And so all of those brands at the time when I was working on them really had that connection with the work that we did for our audience.
Yeah. I mean, Southwest is a great example of that too. I mean, being founded there at Love Field, and then using that heart throughout their messaging, I think that's really consistent. And that's what we need to see, in terms of branding for fraternities, sororities too, is that consistency. Lots of times I'll see a fraternity grabbing a tagline from another fraternity and then using it on a local level on a local campus. And I'm like, that doesn't even belong to you. That's like another fraternity's tagline. Like, I get that you like it. It is catchy. I love it, but it's not yours.
That's interesting. I didn't know that fraternities that it worked that way. And is the Panhellenic kind of like the house of brands, or is it
So,
a
I
branded
mean,
house?
Panhellenic is basically the trade association, if you will, for all of the sororities and the fraternities have something similar in the NIC, the North American Interfraternity Conference. It's essentially a trade association that sits above all of these organizations. They don't really have any input in terms of the branding or the messaging for any of these fraternities and sororities. It's really just a trade association, so they all speak with one voice, but it's up to each local headquarters to develop their own branding and their own messaging and their own taglines, and then ensure that all of their chapters on a local university level are all using that same messaging. And so sometimes there's a disconnect between the headquarters and those local chapters in
Wow.
terms of adoption of all of the new branding or the new messaging and making sure that that's consistent all the way from the chapter website through the chapter's various social media channels, etc. Sometimes those things aren't updated, and then you see that inconsistency, and then you're like, this is really weird. Like this chapter is adopting a whole different logo and a whole different tagline than the rest of the 100 chapters. Like this is weird.
That's a great example. I actually give to my clients a lot when they have either product SKUs or and right now, since I've moved into personal branding, some of them have different offerings. And
Mm,
so we have to decide, like, are you going to be a branded house or a house of brands? And the way I give them an example of that is like the Hilton is the hotel that owns Hampton and I'm trying to think Canopy and some other properties that all have their own brand identities. So they're a house of brands. The graduate hotels, since we're talking about university,
mm.
have you been to any?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the Graduate Hotels is one of my most favorite brands because they've done it so well and so perfectly from the start. They are a branded house.
Mm,
However, every single location is able to take on their own identity. And when you walk into Nashville or you walk into Austin or you walk into North Carolina, you know that it is a graduate property because they've all tethered back to a set of rules, a set of design style, but then they've still taken on their own identity. So I feel like that could be the same thing. So Zeta would have, the Zeta look, they're the graduate, but then every single location underneath it could have a little identity, but it all tethered back to a system, a brand identity system that they all adopt, and then they spin based on their location or the types
mhm.
of members they have. So yeah, that is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I see a little bit of that with like Whataburger, for example. They've really come into Tennessee, and you see them still adopting the Whataburger logo, but then they have like the local store they kind of integrate into the logo. So you'll
Mhm.
see like Whataburger, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, or whatever.
Mhm.
So they do kind of incorporate that local location into the brand, and so there is some little local flair that
Mhm.
they take and run with. So yeah, I've seen stuff like that,
Yeah.
which is always really interesting. I'm wondering, why do some brands stick in your mind really, really well, while others just seem to fade away completely?
Some of that's saturation. So some of it's just media buy. So it's
Mm,
the amount of time that you can be sending a consistent message. Consistency is going to be our consistent theme in this conversation. But that emotional connection, consistency, they really tap into that human element of like why people should care. And there can be pop culture involved. So some of it can be just kind of hip and trending and it can stick, but it is so much to do with consistency. It's why we associate the Clydesdale horses with Budweiser. It doesn't even really make sense if you think about it. Like, what is this all about? There's some historical connotation to it, but every single year on the Super Bowl, we look forward to where those horses are going to go.
hmm
What are they going to be? And so having something early on, and especially when I develop new brands, I'm always looking for some sticky item, usually something visual or a tagline that they can say that makes so much sense to them that they'll stick with. And so, for example, a company I just worked with that I was a chief brand officer for is called Lodgewell. We named it. It's called Lodgewell. It was all about offering amazing service to the guests that come stay in their vacation rental properties. So I had to come up with something that was a brand element that was a sticky substance that could go throughout all of the ways the customer experienced it. So if they were offering really great service, that feels like when you're rolling out the red carpet. So for a company that is selling their front doors and their Airbnbs, that's rolling out the red welcome mat. So we did red welcome mats at every single property with their logo on it. We skewed the logo up so that people could put their feet on top of the mat and take UGC. There was a lot of user generated content of people's feet and all the different travelers that came through. And so that red welcome mat service became kind of this sticky item for them and be this branding thing that would go through all of their events and all of their marketing pieces. And so finding something like that that represents your culture or represents your message is very important. And then making sure that that shows up across your platforms and different marketing endeavors.
Wow, just totally fascinating. I actually heard the story about the Geico gecko the other
Mhm.
day, where it was something like there was some kind of strike going on, and they were filming a commercial. They couldn't use live talent, and so they just went with this animated gecko, and then it stuck. I mean, the users loved it, and so there's
Yeah.
really no connection, right,
No,
to
yeah.
insurance. But I mean, we all know the Geico gecko. We've seen it, and it
Mhm.
sticks, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that's the question, right? I mean, what are some of those psychology tricks that really make customers love that brand? Is there anything in particular that they're using?
I like to call them strategies, so they sound somewhat more ethical. But I think, I think a lot of people will use scarcity. Like a scarcity mindset is an interesting thing to tap into. So highlighting like limited time offers or exclusive products to increase perceived value. That can be used sometimes. I think emotional appeal, that's always my favorite, connecting your brand to positive emotions or aspirational identities. Storytelling is huge. I think that creating a narrative that will resonate with your audience's values and experiences. So storytelling is a great bit of psychology. We've talked about consistency. I
Mm.
also really like the art of reciprocity. And so offering value to customers and encouraging them to reciprocate with loyalty, it's an interesting dynamic that you don't even know is happening and it doesn't feel so tricky. It's like we're giving you value, you give us value. We all kind of work in this symbiotic relationship together and very synergistic. And so I really like using that if I can, as a way of kind of getting into the minds of consumers where everyone wins.
Yeah, I love it. We should talk a little bit more about that emotional piece. I think that's a really important thing for fraternities and sororities because we stand for certain values and we want to basically show that our brand is aligned with those values. Yeah, Sigma Chi is a really good example of it. Their national philanthropy is the Huntsman Institute, and they believe that this is the generation that's going to cure cancer. And so the Huntsman Institute is raising millions and millions of dollars through the Brothers of Sigma Chi to cure cancer. I can't think of a more noble cause. And it's like, hey, we're going to win this thing together. And that is something that unifies all of the men on these college campuses to get together to raise a lot of money in the hopes that they are going to be the ones that is going to cure cancer. So, I mean, are there other examples of brands that tap into these human emotions?
Personal brands, humans,
Sure.
people,
Yeah.
like the
Personal
Oprah
brands are
Winfrey.
good too. Yeah.
Well, so like I think if you think of personal brands, which is where I've been pivoting my career right now, if you think
Yeah.
about the people and what they represent, like it's same thing. If Sigma Chi were to move forward and you knew them as associated with the Huntsman organization and with cancer in general and just like everything that they're working on, then I think that is the goal. So you know that is the fraternity that is determined to use their power to fight cancer.
Yeah.
Is it a specific type of cancer, or is it just kind of
It's all, yeah. I mean, I think that they're raising money just to basically do research, and I think it's all cancer.
yeah.
But certainly, my dad has been impacted with cancer. He's got multiple myeloma, which is cancer of the blood, and I actually see Brothers of Sigma Chi essentially raising money to go and fix that. So, I mean, I'm not even a member of Sigma Chi, but I hope that one day they're going to be able to help my dad, and so that's that emotional pull, and so. I guess, for those personal branding, I'm assuming that there are others that are doing similar things.
Yeah, if we talk about like Oprah Winfrey, she's
Yeah.
empathy and self-improvement.
Uh,
Brene Brown, she's known for vulnerability and courage. I think we all know Tony Robbins is kind of the motivation and personal power. And then like Malala, she's hope and perseverance. And so she represents that. Gary V, hustle, attention, authenticity. Michelle Obama is inspiration and very like reliability, very reliable and relatable. Also, she's extremely relatable. And then there's Lewis Howes, School of Greatness. I don't know if you follow him. He's all about personal growth and resilience. So I think carving out like what are those things you want to be known for, or what are you already being known for? What is your reputation already saying about you? And then just niching down and not trying to get too distracted by anything else, because like Sigma Chi could have other causes that they're really getting around, and they might still, but to really say, no, this is the one, this is what we stand for. That's my biggest piece of advice. Be known for one thing if possible, or a little couple things.
those are wonderful examples. I really like those because those are ones that everybody knows, right?
Right.
So I like that a lot. And, let's talk about the college student. How do you feel that that personal branding impacts your reputation for college students?
I think it can have a significant impact on college students' reputations, both during like their academic years and as they transition into their careers. It helps them stand out in a competitive job market. It helps them build a professional network early. You can showcase your skills and achievements beyond grades, and you can develop a clear personal and professional identity. And interestingly enough, I'm experiencing this firsthand right now because I have a college sophomore, and he is my son, and he's currently working with the strategist, a friend of mine, on his personal brand for a YouTube show he's considering launching. So it's fascinating to see how early this process now begins and how it can shape future opportunities. So my biggest advice right now is everyone go by your name, url.com, and just make sure you have your first and last name.com, and just hold it. You may not need to do anything for it. My son, for example, doesn't want to be the face right now. He just kind of wants to be the voice behind his program. And I just think with the way AI is going and this the future of what's real, what's not real, we will always be real and we will always represent something. And you are your own unique brand just because you're you. And so there's a quote that one of my mentors has said a lot. It's find your unique gifts and exploit it in the service of others. And it's so true. And in college, it's packaged up more and through the professional lens. But really, if you just think about like what makes me unique, what is my skill, what's my knowledge, what do I have to offer the world? You are a brand already. So in college, the sooner you can get it going, the better. And just start fleshing it out. And we're always evolving. We're always iterating. So it'll grow along with us.
Yep, that's great advice. And yeah, that domain name for your personal name, I mean, that's going to cost you $10 a year, a great investment. You really don't even know, where your career is going to go. And I would say that it's smart to own that piece of real estate just because you just never know how
Yeah.
things are going to play out for you. And that's really interesting about your son too, in terms of him creating his own channel and starting to build that. I think a lot of the fraternity and sorority members who are listening now, they don't really know how to stand out in terms of their marketing messages on social media. So, what is your advice to them if they want to get more traffic, more likes, and ultimately more students to join them?
I would say start treating your organization like a brand, like really consider it and the potential members as your customers.
Mhm.
So if you were like, we're a brand and we're being shopped, really think about it in that sense. And it's kind of an entrepreneurial lens as well to be like, okay, our customers are these members. Simon Sinek always says, what's your why? And that's a good one. And what is your why? But really, I'm also interested in your who. Like, who are you trying to attract? Oh, members, we want people to join us, but no, really dig on like what kind of members. You already have such an amazing focus group of all your current members and your past members and your alumni. So you kind of can and put together your potential avatar, but really being like, who do we want to attract? And why do we want to attract them, and figure that part out. And so then once you've identified your ideal member, before creating any content, like, what are their interests and values and aspirations and challenges do they face in college life? And how would we be the place? And why would we be where they would want to go that feels so natural for them? I struggle a lot sometimes with the sales and marketing of branding, because I was taught to just attract people to your brand, create such great work that you don't have to develop like lead generation and sales funnels and all that stuff too, because you just naturally have already tapped into the emotion of the person you want to attract. So there's really not a lot of conversion that has to be done. So thinking about that and how would you reach them, you can do surveys, you could do social media analytics, see who's already liking your posts on social media. You can engage with people in your DMs. I think there's definitely an underserved market of all your followers on social media. Some people think that, oh, I only have 500 followers. Well, that's 500 people that are interested. Like, you already have 500 leads, if you want to call them that, right there. Just start reaching out to them. Why did you follow me? What did you like about this content? And just kind of getting in the minds of your consumers, so that when you develop these personas, you'll have these profiles and they'll help tailor your messaging and content strategy. And then once you've defined all that, then you can speak their language. You can address their needs, show how their organization can help them achieve their goals or overcome their challenges. And then showcase relatable stories. I think there's a lot of fun stuff right now on social media when it comes to rushing and all the fun stuff that happens, and just the brand of a fraternity or sorority, for most parts, it's like, it's going to be fun. It's going to be community and party, and you get friends. And so just making sure that those content buckets are all thought through, so that you are attracting other people that might be like, I want to be a part of that, but I don't know if I'm going to party, or I don't know if I'm going to be popular enough, or whatever that people might think about it. But yeah, just really getting into the mind of and the persona of who you're trying to attract.
Yeah, that answer is absolute gold. And I talk about it during recruitment all the time. I don't feel like the chapters necessarily do have that discussion before Rush even starts about
Mhm.
who is our ideal member. You should talk about that as a chapter and put that up on the board.
Yep.
Because if you're handing out invitations to other students to join your organization, and that meeting is like 3 or 4 hours long because you're debating whether or not to invite somebody into your organization, I would argue that you haven't done a good job of defining who it is that you're looking for before Rush even started. Because if you did, then it would be really simple. Either yes, this person checks all the boxes that we identified before Rush started, or no, it's a yes or no binary, zeros and ones. The reason why you are taking 3 or 4 hours to make these decisions is because you never set out initially to determine who is your ideal member. So get clear on that, and that's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of frustration, I promise you. This is really, really gold that Lauren is talking about. So I absolutely love it. What about the chapter websites? I mean, do you think it's really important for Gen Z to have an updated website? And if so, what types of things do you suggest in terms of content for a student organization like a fraternity or sorority?
Yes, I think an updated website, and I love websites. I think it's the front door to it's the digital front door to your business. So making sure the curb appeal is good is crucial for Gen Z. It's essential to know where your target market is shopping. So if it's Instagram or TikTok or other platforms, your website is indeed the digital front door to your brand. So make a strong first impression. I think it's hard to with the websites, because they can become outdated if there's not somebody always on it. And I don't know the internal marketing structure of a fraternity or a sorority to know who's in charge of that. But I can imagine that as people kind of graduate out of it and it passes down to the next person, it's just like what I did growing like with my children. I would always do their social media for the sports teams. And then when they graduated out of it, I'd have to pass it down to the next mom volunteer. And so things become inconsistent. So if you were to establish, just like you said, who your ideal customer avatar is, and you have your brand guidelines and your brand book, I call them brand vaults, is what I give to my clients now, so that they can give it over to their team, or as they grow, they're always coming back to it and finding that logo and finding everything to make sure it stays consistent, making sure your website is built on a platform that's easy to move around and to teach people how to use. But I think definitely making sure it's sleek, mobile-friendly designs with fast load times and intuitive navigation for this generation. We want it fast, we want to be able to scroll, but making sure it's a very mobile-friendly design as well, I think is very important to think about.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's really kind of passed down in terms of responsibility. As one person graduates, it's their responsibility to pass it off to the next guy so they can
Mhm.
run the website. But that doesn't always happen seamlessly. I mean, you know it with parents, right? And so sometimes somebody graduates and then they're like, how do we access the website to make an update again? And then it doesn't get updated for like two
Yeah.
years. And I'm like looking at the website and I'm like, these are leaders who graduated 2 years ago. Like this information is all stale. And I think that, Gen Z is going to creep you. They are going to look at your front door before they join the organization and determine, are you technology sophisticated or are you stuck in the dinosaur era? If you're stuck in the dinosaur era, I'm telling you that Gen Z is going to be turned off. Okay. It's
Yep.
very simple. So they are going to creep you. They are going to check your website. Please don't assume that it's okay that you haven't updated your chapter website in 2 years. It's not okay. Please update it. Please,
Yes.
I beg you. I see this stuff and it drives me mad. If I had hair, I would pull out my hair, but I don't. So please, please change it. Earlier we were talking about Sigma Chi and some of the things that they're doing to cure cancer, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. And I know both of your parents they were diagnosed with kidney cancer, while your mom was also battling dementia at the same time. So I'm wondering, as an only child turned primary caregiver, this obviously has taken a huge toll on you, both personally and also professionally too. Can you talk to our listeners a little bit about what that has taught you?
Mm. Yes, it's been a lot. It was a big couple of years there, and I'm definitely in the sandwich generation, which is to the younger viewers, that's when you're sandwiched between raising kids and kind of taking care of your parents at the same time.
Mm,
But coming out on the other side of it now and seeing that all of the things we experience in life are definitely applicable in some way. When you're experiencing it, you don't quite know it, but when you're on the other side of it, you're like, oh, now I'm more empathetic. I'm more resilient. I'm more, I said empathetic, but I'm more efficient with my time. So I now know how to manage things in a way and manage loss and manage suffering in a way that I can tap back into when I experience that in a business situation or experience in anything with my clients or things like that. So I think empathy, patience, understanding, like all of it is just like, it just kind of hits you. And it also is your mortality. You're reminded of that too. And it kind of goes back to the purpose driven stuff. When I was first coming up with Roy and he was talking about purpose-based branding and like why we're all here, if you can get kind of woo and big about it all, it's really true. Like if this is, we don't know how much time we all have here. And so we should probably be spending it as best we can. I have a YOLO mentality to life that just like every day is a gift. And so what that experience taught me with my parents is that I don't know how much longer we have to go. So I'm not going to not chase my business dreams or any of my goals. And so just being there for them reminded me that I'm stronger than I realized, helping them through that. And so are they. So I
yeah.
think strength, resilience, and empathy.
Yeah, I listen. I think we're twins there. I think, my dad going through multiple myeloma and, talking about how much time he's got to live, and those conversations around the family table has taught me the same things that, we only have a finite number of hours on this planet. And so, we better make the most of it. And that's kind of what I'm in a rush to do is to make the
Yeah.
most of it and get as much down on paper. Kind of the reason why I'm in this doctorate program now, it's to get that dissertation done and give that document to the masses so that way they can take it and run with it and build on it in order to make this planet a little bit better. So I'm in a rush to get that done, which will be done very soon in the next couple of months. So I'm
That's
super
amazing.
excited about that. Yeah, which is great. But
Congrats.
I feel pressure. I feel a rush to get my goals done or else. And I think that's kind of what it has taught me. And so I'm sure our listeners are going to go through similar types of things in their lives. But just understand, make every day count because we just don't know how much time we've got left. Only the person above really knows what that clock is. So make the most of it and make it count. So
Mhm.
that's my best advice. Now, listen, we love good food here at the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. That is my weakness. I mentioned my daughter headed to Rice, and so I'm going to be driving. That's a really short commute there between Houston and Austin. I think I'm going to go back and forth quite a bit because I love both cities, and I want to explore them more. So the next time that I'm in Austin, is there a particular restaurant that I need to visit?
Oh gosh, there's so many have come on in the last, especially since COVID. I feel like all these restaurateurs moved here and just have so many. I think the first place you have to start though is a delicious burger on campus at the University of Texas at Dirty Martin's. Have you ever been there?
I have
Yes.
not been there, but I know the restaurant. Yes.
Yes. Go to Dirty's, get you a burger. It's so good. I always, when I have friends come to town, always go to Guero's on South Congress.
Uh-huh.
I love Guero's for Tex-Mex. I mean, there's tacos everywhere. You kind of can't have a bad taco in Austin. So just if it says tacos, you'll be fine. Torchy's is one of my favorites.
Mm.
Taco Deli is really good. And then I'm not a huge seafood person, but also in South Congress is Perla's. It's a seafood restaurant, and it is spectacular. It is so, so good. So I love Perla's. And then Franklin's Barbecue. You heard of it?
I
Yeah.
have heard of Franklin's.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Very good.
order ahead of time. And then on your drive, which you now have in Tennessee, you can always stop into Buc-ee's and get some beaver nuggets.
That's a regular stop. I mean, that
Okay.
happens at every Buc-ee's. Like my car just automatically goes off the road so we can
Speaking
stop
of
and get some
brand,
good
that's a
food.
great brand. I mean,
That's a great
they've
brand.
figured it out. How do you get
Oh,
people excited about a beaver? And it doesn't make any sense, but they did great. They just went with it and it's consistent
yep.
and did so much branding insight too. So, and people love it.
Yeah, that's a study into itself. I mean, how did Buc-ee's take this beaver and just completely dominate that industry? I have no idea, but they did a great job.
No, people are like, I can't wait to go to this gas station. Like, who says that?
Who
Like,
does that? Only
I
Buc-ee's.
don't know.
That's the gas station,
Have
and
you
we
been in
can't
their
wait.
bathrooms? They're so awesome. Like, what? What are we
Yeah,
saying?
they're super clean. I mean, it's great, you know. So yeah, they figured it out. I mean, God bless them. So give that person a raise. Whoever figured out that whole Bucky's brand, give that person a raise because they know what they're doing. That's all I
Like,
can say. All right.
exactly.
So if our listeners, if they want to connect with you for personal or business branding, where should they go in order to connect with you?
Well, if you've been paying attention, my name, laurenbayne.com. Everybody should go get their name. But my personal brand, laurenbayne.com, has all the information you need. I do what's called free dream catcher calls, like those like Native American dream catchers. That's how I envision it. I'm like, I'm catching your dreams on these calls and just want to find out what you're trying to accomplish with your name, with your skills, with your business, and we'll figure out how to make it happen. I specialize in verbal and visual identities. And so that comes with a brand identity system that rolls out to your website. And then there's just like monthly refinement packages, or just a lot of it's a one-on-one. It's having a fractional creative director on hand to be able to talk about your brand with, if you don't have the means to go hire a big agency or something. But it's also makes, I love it so much because this personal branding industry that I've just now kind of pivoted into is just all dreamers. It's all people that have dreams, have skill sets, have knowledge, have expertise that they want to share with the world. And so it is so fun to be able to design their unique identity and turn them into a brand. So
I love it.
laurenbayne.com.
All right, I love it. It's laurenbayne.com. She spells her last name Bayne. So it's laurenbayne.com. Go and check it out and connect with her. Let her know that you heard about her on the Fraternity Foodie podcast. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for this absolute mastermind session on branding. I so appreciate you. I love what you do, and congratulations. And thank you for sharing it.
Thank you, and good luck with everything.
Of course, of course. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation with Lauren, I want you to like it and I want you to share it with other college students that are also super into branding and anybody that might need help with their personal branding. Lauren is the person to go to. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We hope to see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much. Bye for now.